Alright, hey everyone, this is going to be a video about solving equations with the zero product property. I think this will be a fun one. The zero product property is kind of weird at first, but once you get it, it'll make a ton of sense and be super easy. So I have this thing up here, it's x plus 1 times x minus 4 equals 0. So this is an equation, and we're trying to find x. And that's the whole point. If it was like x plus 4 equals 2, then you would try to find x and just do whatever you had to get x. So we're going to do something like that here, but it's just different, and it's going to seem a bit weird at first, but you'll get it. So basically, the deal is for these two things to equal 0, one of these will have to be 0. It's basically going to have to be like 0 times 0 equals 0 because that's how it works. So it's kind of weird, and you don't need to think about it that way at all, but that's just how I'm just going to use that to explain why I'm about to do what I do. But here's how you solve for x in this case. You separate it into two separate parts. So we've got x plus 1 equals 0, or x minus 4 equals 0. So basically, since like I said, 0 times 0 equals 0, we're setting both sides of that, or both binomials equal to 0, the x plus 1 and the x minus 4. So from there, we can just solve for x on both sides. We've got x equals, well, I'm just going to show you real quick. You should be able to do this by now, but x equals -1 because I just subtracted 1 from both sides. And then over here, plus 4 and plus 4 on both sides, x equals 4. So that's really the final answer. And I usually like to write it like this: x equals -1, x equals 4. Or just x equals -1 and 4. That'll work too, either way. So basically that works because those are the only two numbers that if we put back into the equation, it would actually work. With the answer you would get is 0. And let me show you what I mean by that real quick. If we were to take this over here, and I said, if I was to say x is -1, okay? So that's one of the solutions we just got using the way we did it. We've got -1 and 4, but if I'm just using -1 as x, in this case, then we're going to get -1 plus 1, -1 minus 4 equals 0. So on this left side, we got -1 plus 1, which is 0, times -1 minus 4, which is -5. And 0 times -5 is, of course, 0. 0 equals 0, that works. So that's just checking my solution real quick. Now, say I was to use the 4 instead, the same deal would go for it. I say I'm using this 4, I could just say 4 plus 1. I'm going to use a different color for that. Sorry. If I was to substitute in this 4 for x, because remember these are the solutions that we got for x. X equals -1 and x equals 4. So if I was to use 4 for this, I could just say 4 plus 1 times 4 minus 4 equals 0. 5 is 4 plus 1, obviously, and then 4 minus 4 is 0. 5 times 0 equals 0. And 5 times 0 is 0. So if 0 equals 0, that works. So 0 is obviously the same thing as 0. So basically the reason I show that is because if you picked any number besides -1 or 4 and input it in for x, like there I was just saying -1 is x or 4 is x. If you pick any other number and try to put it in, you could not end up with 0 equals 0, which is the only true thing about 0. So that just goes to show that when you see something like x plus 1 times x minus 4, this equation that we started with, you can use that way to solve for x. So I'm going to have one more problem real quick, and this is actually one I used on a previous practice, but let's just say we had x squared minus 7x minus 18, and then we just say it equals 0. Well, if you remember from my earlier video on factoring trinomials, what you do is you take negative 18 off to the side, and then you say what multiplies up to get negative 7. And the answer is going to end up being negative 9 and 2, because negative 9 times 2 is 18, and negative 9 plus 2 is negative 7. So once you do that, you know to just make your parentheses and put your x at the start. We got x minus 9, and then x plus 2 equals 0. So from there, we can just use what we just learned and say x minus 9 equals 0 and x plus 2 equals 0. So you can just solve both sides. On this side, we get x equals 9, and on this side, we get x equals negative 2. So our final answer is x equals 9 and negative 2. So that's pretty much it for the zero product property. You can see it in a lot of different ways, but just remember, if you have two things in parentheses multiplying to get 0, you can set both sides of the parentheses equal to 0, like I did with both of those there, and then just solve for x from there using all the tools you know how to solve for x. So it could be a range of things, but you'll see, and you'll figure out once you just set it equal to 0, it's pretty easy to solve from there and then get the solution or solutions for x. So that's pretty much it for the zero product property. Thanks for watching.